Live from the Trustmark Studios of the Gallo Show, reminding you the plan for your family's future with a bank that fits you to a T. Trustmark, people you trust, advice that works. Member FDIC, Wealth Management Division in the house. He is Scott Peyton, State Director of Right on Crime. Good morning, Scott. How are you, sir? It's good to have you.
Good morning, Paul.
I was just thinking about this a few seconds ago. It's kind of sad to even need an organization like this for victims' rights when you start thinking about it. But that's something that really came up, 10, 15 years ago that we had to address in the state legislature. A little bit of a history on that.
Yeah, Paul, it is unfortunate that we do have to make sure that we are putting victims' rights front and center when it comes to legislation, when it comes to policy. Unfortunately, we have way too many victims in Mississippi and across the country, and that's what we intended this session was to remind lawmakers, to remind ourselves. I need to be reminded that the work that we're doing ultimately should be with the goal of helping and restoring victims and walking them through the process and making sure they understand what's going on in the criminal justice process.
Is that an ongoing thing, Scott, as far as people calling you saying, look, because I'm thinking of the last thing here is this parole situation that we're talking about now, as far as the last one with the Williams guy. And is that part of it as far as the paroling in that subject?
Yeah, Paul. This session we had some great representatives and senators that ran this resolution. It was Representative Felcher, Senator Delano, England, Kaufman, and Seymour. This week is National Crime Victims' Rights Week. And what we did was pointed out that the Constitution, Mississippi Constitution, says that victims should be treated with fairness, with dignity, with respect, and most importantly, and I think this will tie into what you mentioned on the recent parole decision, they need to be informed, they need to be present, and they need to be heard throughout the process. And, we ran this through, as I said earlier, to make sure that lawmakers understand they have a duty to make sure that victims are treated with fairness and dignity and respect, and that legislation and policy that comes from under the dome keeps that in mind, and that we pass policies and legislation that is going to reduce crime, reduce recidivism, which in turn creates fewer victims. But we do have victims in the system now that need to be given the opportunity to understand the system and to be able to navigate through the complexities of the criminal justice process.
So what you're basically saying is through your organization pushing it through the legislative process where victims' rights is more than just a gratuity, it is the law of the land.
Absolutely, Paul. And we've heard a lot of people mention about prayer and that we need to do more than prayer, and we do. Part of this resolution, though, declares Friday as a day of prayer in Mississippi for crime victims. And we used a scripture from the Old Testament, and I'll put on my deacon hat for you, Paul, but King Hezekiah was told by the prophet Isaiah that he was going to die in 15 days, which obviously caused him a lot of harm and distress. He prayed to God that this would not happen. God heard his prayer. He saw his tears, and now he's healing him. And that is the theme that we set for Friday. While victims should be in our prayers every day, this particular Friday we'll designate through these resolutions a day of prayer. And what comes with prayer comes with action. We have to put the things that we're working towards into action, and so we do set aside for prayer because there is value in prayer. Prayer is very powerful.
Absolutely.
And it's how we should begin and start our day, and how we should begin and start the activities that we do. So,
Scott, I want to take this from a lot of the words there to how someone out there who has been a victim of a crime, and they're listening to this, he is or she is, and she says, "Oh, well, wait a minute, Tell me exactly what powers do I have through legislation or through your organization? What can I do about this if I feel like I am being mistreated here or being negated as far as some of the decisions?
Well, Paul, there is a Crime Victims Bill of Rights, and if you're just getting into, if you're new to if you've just been a victim of a crime, the best place to start is with the district attorney, with your prosecutor's office. Each prosecutor's office, if they do not have an established victims coordinator, they will be able to point you in a direction to a victims coordinator that will start to explain the criminal justice system, let you understand what the upcoming hearings are going to be about, and explain the whole process. As someone that has been in the process, my family was a victim of a sex crime, and it was difficult navigating it, one, because of the emotions that were going on, and understanding we would get letters in the mail, Paul, when things were going good, when we finally were getting to a point that we were able to not think about it. We would open the mailbox, and then there would be a notice of a new hearing, or an appeal, or a parole hearing. These things, and victims need someone to call to explain and walk them through the process and let them know what they can do and let them know what these hearings are all about.
All right. What happens if you're in the city of Jackson, you get carjacked or an attempted carjacked, you are emotionally traumatized, your property has been damaged, maybe they've stolen your purse or whatever it happens to be. You thank God that you got away with your life, but as many times as you call the Jackson Police Department or the city council, whatever, you're getting no feedback at all. What about your rights there? What do you do then?
Paul, I would. There are many nonprofits, and we can put some links on our website. But there's many nonprofits that.
What do the nonprofits do?
Well, they will line you up with counseling. There's so much trauma associated with being victims, and not necessarily just for the individual that was the target of the crime, but family members. There's a ripple effect when it comes to crime. There's a ripple effect on.
I understand that when they line you up with counsel, does that mean they find you a lawyer?
No, I'm counseling, Paul.
You talking about therapy?
Yes.
Is that paid for, or who pays for that?
It really depends, but there are some opportunities out there. And I would start with the prosecutor's office when it comes to those getting those referrals for those in the community that are providing these services.
You go back and you look at some of the success stories that your organization has done. I mean, can you point to that and say, all right, we're getting to where we want to be?
Well, yes. When we look at working with the legislature to understand that those individuals, and we'll talk post-conviction, those individuals that are being sent to prison have to be prepared because eventually they're going to come out. So what we are making sure that while individuals are inside of DOC, while they're in DOC custody, that they are receiving programming, they are being prepared for the day that they ultimately come out. And these are ways that we can help protect victims by reducing recidivism and making sure that we're addressing the underlying causes of what got people into prison in the first place.
Do you counsel with them from your organization, or is that all outsourced?
That would be all outsourced, Paul. We don't do any direct services, but we would make sure that there's policies in place or could point them in the right direction.
It's just, yesterday we had Flip Weinberg on, and Flip did a great job. He's the assistant prosecutor for the ADA for the city of Jackson back when this Williams guy was convicted. And he said more than once, and I was talking to him, he said there was something, so you looked into this guy's eyes, and it was just psychotic. I mean, it was, this guy just, he was not even there. It was some wildness in his eyes. And he's being released into the community. And I keep thinking about what Flip said about this, and I'm not sure if he's changed or what, but there's got to be a lot of people in that community, the crime victims and the family and friends, who are worried about where this guy's going to be. So, I mean, that's a whole new story. I want you to comment on that when we come back in a moment or two with Scott Peyton. If you're looking for more information on this, it is on Twitter at Right on Crime. Hank Bernard joins us coming up at 8:05. A lawsuit was filed Monday of this week against country music